Some of you probably know the blind men and the elephant, where a group of blind men have never seen an elephant before. They've never felt an elephant before. They don't know what the experience of an elephant is. And so the first man grabs the trunk of the elephant and he declares to the others, he says, "Oh, an elephant is like a big snake. That's what it feels like. It's like a big snake." And the next blind man is holding the leg of the elephant. And he goes, "No, no, 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 no." He's like, "An elephant is like a pillar. It's like a tree trunk." And then the next blind man is touching the side of the elephant. He's like, "No, no, no, you're both wrong. It's a wall. It's this big, strong wall." And then another man is touching the ears, and he's like, "No, no, no, you're all wrong. It's like a fan, like a big fan." So the moral of the story, or what the story is pointing to, is that our perceptions are not reality. Our perceptions are based on where we are standing, where we are looking from, and also based on our past experiences and memories and beliefs. And if we peel the layers back and look a little bit more deeply, what we will find is that in fact we are not experiencing any objective reality. That the way that we see as humans, we see in a particular range that is useful for humans to live. So we don't see ultraviolet, we don't see infrared. It's not helpful for us to see this. We see a little slice through our perception of sight. We don't hear all of the sounds that are happening. We hear in a particular range that is useful for humans to survive. And our touch and taste and smell, all of our senses geared towards humans in a range that can help us to survive. If we saw and heard everything that was happening, we would be so overwhelmed, we wouldn't be able to survive. It wouldn't be useful to us. And Donald Hoffman, a scientist, has a couple of analogies that I want to borrow from to represent this. If you're playing a video game and you can see the cars and the trees and the streets and the lamps as you're navigating the game, it is not useful to see the code behind the images. That if you saw all the code, the game would be unplayable. And another example he uses is that if you have a folder on your desktop and you've got some documents in that desktop, when we click the folder, we know there's not really a folder there. The document isn't really in the corner of our screen, but it's a helpful representation for us to know how to access the documents. So our brain is constantly processing and constructing an illusion for us. And as Anil Seth describes it, it's a controlled hallucination. A controlled hallucination that we can all agree on, that is helpful for us as humans to survive, to hallucinate the world in this way. It helps us to survive. And so the illusion that we see of ourselves, that when we're having thoughts about ourselves, when we're thinking about maybe something not too harmless, just thinking about what you need to do later, you need to go to the store, you have a little representation, an image of yourself kind of going to the store and getting some things done that you need to get done. Or maybe that illusion is arising as, "Oh, someone criticized me earlier, and now I'm remembering that criticism." And that little representation, that image that I have of myself, is really painful right now. Or maybe I'm judging myself, I'm belittling myself, I'm in some way doubting myself. And that little image that I hold of myself in that moment, that representation of who I am, but not who I really am, is in pain, is suffering. So when we mistake the representation to be the truth of who we are, that is the point in which we suffer. And the ego, the separate self, this little voice that we're talking about, that's always carrying on, to some degree, there is some usefulness in the ego. For many of you that were on the Sunday Sangha, where we were doing the ego game, right? And we were looking at all the different characters of the ego, the perpetual planner, and the worrier, and the controller, and the scorekeeper, and the victim, right? We were really looking at all of the different ways that the ego arises. And what we were always showing was that there can be a little bit of usefulness in there. This representation is not all bad. Where it turns into suffering for us is when we have mistaken the representation is true. That this little image of me being hurt, of me being criticized, of me not feeling like I'm enough, of me feeling like I'm unlovable, or I've just done too much bad stuff in my life to ever possibly be enlightened, to awaken, right? That image is not true. And it's no longer even a helpful representation. That in fact it becomes a harmful representation for us. And last week, when we looked at the illusion of free will, and we tried to go step by step by step, that every step where it feels like there's this sense of a me, a separate me that's controlling all of this, and we tried to go step by step by step, even to the very last part where we go, well, I don't control the weather, I don't control whether I'm sick or not, I don't control whether the dogs are sick, I don't control whether the internet's up or not, but I wanted to do it. And that was the part of me that was in control. And as we looked even at that, like, you don't control what you want, what you like, any more than you control whether the internet's up or down. I talked about Diet Coke versus Diet Pepsi. No matter how much I want, in fact, no matter how much I wish I didn't like Diet Coke even, I like it. I like it. There's nothing I can do about that. I like it. No matter how, I cannot control my likes and my dislikes. And so by looking at each step of the way, that there is no free will along the way, that this representation that we have now mistaken to be the fact, to be the truth of who we are, what we find when we truly investigate it, that no, we are simply a process, arising moment by moment based on a million, billion, trillion different causes and conditions. Things that are happening in the external world and things that are not happening in the external world. Things that are happening internally and things that are not happening internally. Whether I have an infection or not, or whether I'm feeling sick, what's happening with my nervous system, where my glucose levels are, what's happening in my kidneys, in my spleen, like all of these things, internal and external, all of these things causing us to arise in each and every single moment. That there is nothing solid, independent, in control. And when we looked at the conclusions of seeing that there is no free will, what we found was that it frees us every single time. Where if we can accept that we truly are the result of causes and conditions, there is nothing solid and independent. And again, just to remind everyone, I'm not saying you don't exist. We all exist. We just do not exist in the way that we think we do. This is the misperception. We've taken the representation to be a fact. And so when we acknowledge that, we can finally let go of all the regret of wishing we had done something differently in the past. You wouldn't have done anything differently. That's how the conditions were arising in that moment. We imagine, because we take the representation to be something solid and independent, we think there must have been a choice. I could have made another choice. No, you couldn't. That is the point. However you are arising in each moment, whatever it is that's nudging you in one direction versus another, right, is not an independent choice. There is decision-making happening, brain processes happening, but no decision maker. Thinking happening, no thinker. Doing happening, no doer. And that if we can accept that our true nature is the result of millions and billions and trillions of causes and conditions arising in each moment, then we can accept that this is what everyone else is too. So the hatred and the anger and the resentment that we hold towards others that have harmed us evaporates. Not that there's no consequences. I'm not saying that there are consequences. Not that we don't set boundaries. Of course we do. But the hatred and the anger is no longer there, because there's nothing personal here to take it personally in the first place. It's just causes and conditions. And we look at someone that's harming us, and yes, we set a boundary, or there's consequences for treating us poorly. But we recognize that person is simply the result of all of their millions and billions and trillions of causes and conditions. And man, that sucks. I feel bad for them because they're suffering. So to the degree that we can see where the illusion is no longer helpful and in fact causing us harm, what we see is that it frees us. And I wanted to bring up just two other examples today to just kind of move the thread a little further along here in the illusion of free will. That when we are attached to our views, our opinions, our beliefs, when we believe there is something here that is making all of these views, opinions, and beliefs, we take things personally. And so if we even just use an example like, 1,000 years ago, most people on the planet believed the earth was flat because of the causes and conditions of being born in that time and any time before that. That's how it appeared. That's what people believed. Because of being born today, the causes and conditions is that most of us think that's insane. Not that it has not stopped a resurgence of some people believing the earth is flat, right? Based on their causes and conditions, who am I to judge them? I could be living in that community and be believing it too, based on causes and conditions. So I would never judge someone for their beliefs. But we imagine, because I, Meredith, have these views and opinions and beliefs about religion and politics and science and what's fair and human rights and racism and all of these things. It's my identity. Something inside here made the choice to have a belief one way or another. And so if someone disagrees with me, I feel insulted. It's not just that you have a different view. You're telling me I'm wrong. And I hate you for it. I don't. But this is what's happening, right? People hate another person because they have a different view or opinion, because you're so identified with your views and opinions that we can't hear the other person. We can't imagine that the views and opinions that I have here are simply the result of causes and conditions. right? Taking in certain amounts of information, reading different things, right? Brain processes happening, coming to some conclusion, not saying there's not a conclusion coming to. No one that is having the conclusion, right? But all of the things that I'm exposed to, that I read, the people that I'm around and the things that I'm hearing, all of that is shaping the views and opinions that are here. Just like someone who has a different view or an opinion or belief from me, they are the result of all of their causes and conditions, of what they have been exposed to, what they read, what they watch on TV or on the internet, the people that they are around. And so why would I, take it personally that they believe something different than me? It has nothing to do with me. But if I believe the representation is me, then I think it has everything to do with me. And not only am I offended and I'm angry, I think you're uninformed. I think you're stupid. I shouldn't say this, I think, but this is what we say when someone disagrees. Well, they're not informed. They must read the wrong newspaper. They must watch the wrong things, right? In a way to elevate our position and to take their position down. And it does get really nasty, the way we sling mud at each other over our views and opinions. In politics, and the divisiveness that we have in the world today, in the U.S. in particular, Democrats versus Republicans, Republicans hating Democrats, Democrats hating Republicans. There's no dialogue happening because everyone is digging in their heels and is attached to their own views and opinions, believing they are the heir, the maker of their views and opinions, and they need to protect their views and opinions. And in fact, our views and opinions are so fragile. I can't even hear another opinion. It hurts too much to even hear something different. And we can see the suffering there. We can see where the representation of the self, believing there's free will, is no longer a helpful illusion for us. And look at the trajectory that we are on because of this. And if we can imagine a world where everyone, or even just you're with a group of friends, there's 3 or 4 of you, and everyone knows that your views and opinions are the result of causes and conditions. There's freedom to share your views and opinions, no fear, oh my God, what will they think of me for having this view? Because it's not my view, right? And someone shares a different view and like, oh, how did you come to that conclusion? What are you reading? What informed that decision? Or inform that belief? Again, decisions made, conclusions being drawn, no one that is doing any of this. And we can see how a dialogue happens, because if you're no longer attached to your views and opinions, if you truly understand they are not mine, and your opinions are not yours, we're more likely to have dialogue with each other. And we're more likely to be able to say, wow, I was completely wrong. Wow, I had no idea. And people will know they're wrong in an argument and still dig their heels in because they don't want to admit it. Because of they believe the representation is who I am. And I can't have the representation be wrong. But when we recognize they're not my views and opinions, it's just what the exposure that's been had here over this lifetime, right? That's all it is. So if there's a new belief arising out of that, a little bit of a twist, a shift on that view, opinion, and belief, it's not a problem for us to evolve our views, to say, I was wrong. Man, I really thought that was true. But I think it also does give us a sense of humility and humbleness to recognize, yeah, we've all been wrong before, We'll all be wrong again in the future. Our views and opinions and beliefs are always evolving. Don't be so attached to them. They're not yours. They're not yours. Be open to hear new ideas. That is what how as a society we do progress by bringing ideas together and being able to discuss them and feeling safe, not threatened because someone thinks something differently from me, right? So in this situation, again, whenever we hold up the illusion of free will in different kind of aspects of our life, what we see where the illusion has become unhelpful, and in knowing this, the illusion of free will, through investigation, knowing this, it frees us. That is the gauge. We know if it is freeing us from suffering, we know we're getting somewhere. And where we all want so desperately to live in the present moment. And we want to trust the universe. We want to be able to let go. We want to be able to surrender. Right? Everyone here wants this. But as long as we think the representation is who we are, as long as we think there is something independent and separate inside making decisions that's in control, we will not see that we are arising in each and every single moment as the universe. We are the universe. You are the universe. You are made of all of the same things that are found in the universe. You are not separate from the universe. And where I used the analogy last week of in respect to letting go of the driving of the wheel, right? That there's no one in the driver's seat. There is no driver's seat. There is no driver's seat, right? To let go. And I use the analogy, if you're floating down a river and you're in a inner tube, if you believe you have free will, like you're fighting all the way down the river, you're holding onto this rock over here and you're pushing back off of this over there. No, look what's coming up ahead. I've got to get off the ride. I don't like this anymore, right? We're thrashing about the whole time. And where I want to go to take the analogy a little bit deeper now, because we've had a little bit more time to sit with this. Let's take you on the inner tube on the river out of the analogy. You're the river. You're the river flowing. And there's nothing in the river that could possibly change the direction of the river. Nothing in the river that could change the direction of the river. Boulders coming down, plopping in the river, yeah, making a little change, little fish fluttering around, someone walking through, maybe a shallow part. All of these things, causes and conditions, changing a little bit, slowing it down, speeding it up, all of these things happening, but there's nothing in the river that could possibly control the flow of the direction of the river. So when we say to ourselves, why trust the universe, right? But we want to trust the universe. But why? Because you are the universe. You are it. You're not separate from it. There's nothing independent inside of you. We want to flow in peace and harmony, the ups and the downs, when the river gets a little fast, when it dries out a little bit, and go around the boulders, right? At any point, you've never stopped being the universe. You can believe you're not. You can believe the representation to be a fact instead of just a representation, but you'll suffer. That's the problem. We suffer. So we are living in an illusion upon an illusion upon an illusion. Like it is endless illusions. And it's hard to know, how can we know what is true or what's useful in the illusion? And I think the answer is, to the degree in which it frees you, is a good guide, a good signpost. I mean, it's good to know, even though it's useful for us to see the world in the way that we see it, it is also good to remember it's actually not the way I see it. It opens up the wonder and the awe, right? The mystery of it. When we just simply remember, you're looking up at the sky and you're like, that's not really what it is. I know I see it like this, but that's not really what's going on. There's so much more going on than we could possibly know. And that's the beauty of the mystery. But when it comes to the separate self, I'm not of the mind that we kill or destroy the separate self, the ego. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. You can't kill an illusion. And I think the more you want to kill it and destroy it, that's just more separate self, right? Kind of coming back in another door. It's so sneaky. It's so clever. Right? It's just we want to see it's an illusion. Sometimes a helpful illusion. Sometimes helpful. Yesterday, as I have a class today. I have 2 classes today. There was a little bit of preparation for the class, right? As Lee knows, because he was on the morning class, got flipped around for the afternoon. But there was some preparation for the class, right? And there's that little bit of a separate self, a little bit of a sense of like, oh, go prepare. Like you want to do a good job. You want everyone to benefit from this class, right? They're coming on. You want to help, right? Do a good job. A little bit of that separate self can be helpful there. I'm the one that actually has to go and prepare. It's good for me to know that, right? But when it turns into, oh my God, this is terrible. What are they going to think of this? They're going to think I'm such a loser. I'm such an idiot. We've gone too far. The illusion is no longer helpful. The representation is no longer helpful. And this is what I think we're trying to do in spirituality. We're trying to do the dance. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? There's a helpful representation there. Use it. It's okay. Don't believe it's real. And do investigate it. Because to any degree that illusion is causing you suffering, it is no longer helpful. In fact, it is making the game miserable for you. So investigate. And do some things. We talked about last week a couple of things to help you explore the illusion of free will. I think another, just I'll leave you with one last thing to do. And of course you can email me and I can give you a few more exercises to do. But put 2 drinks in front of you. Not Diet Coke. I wouldn't use Diet Coke on one side and Diet Pepsi on the other, because I know exactly this one's going to reach out for Diet Coke. But put 2 drinks like, a water and an orange juice, or I don't know, a lemonade and an orange juice, something like that, something somewhat, or a coffee and a tea, something along those lines. And just observe, knowing that you're going to reach for one of them, and observe what happens. So that as you see your hand going, you realize, can I really distinguish? Is there anything controlling that? Why was I, and then it went this way. I have no idea. No idea why. To investigate this, to really see the illusion of free will in action, by just setting yourself up, setting up some different food items, right? Setting up different things to see, watch. Oh my God. If you're doing a walking meditation, and for those of you that do walking meditation, it's incredibly slowly. And I remember my teacher, one of the nuns from Santee Forest Monastery, so this was back in 2013, had given me this exercise, and I did not know what she was pointing to at the time. And she was like, can you notice what it is that's causing the foot to arise and move at one moment? Can you distinguish what it is? Because you're going so incredibly slowly when you're doing walking meditation. Can you notice what it is that's controlling that? I really need to email her and say, I know what you're talking about now. I didn't know it at the time, but now I know what she was talking about. Aya Palagnani. So investigate this. We have to see the illusion. Otherwise we suffer. To any degree that we believe we are separate and independent, and that there is something making decisions, something in control, we will suffer. And the degree that we can see that we are in an illusion, and the illusion is sometimes useful, but not us, we are free. And that is what we want. We want to be free. We want to trust the universe. No, you are the universe. You want to trust the present moment. You are arising as the universe in the present moment. Trust it.